So, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Illusionary Tales of Reality. As always, thank you for tuning in and listening to my podcast. If you'd like to support the show, best way possible is sharing the show with your friends and family. If you want to support the show by any other means, links will be in the description for those as well. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get into today's episode. For centuries, we believed that the Earth was flat. It wasn't until the late 15th century, early 16th century, did we start to think otherwise. Fast forward a couple of centuries, and it seems this topic is back up for debate once again, going from an internet trend to having basketball stars like Kyrie Irving talk about it. The flat Earth theory has grown in popularity over the last decade. Our guest today is no stranger to this topic, and hopefully he can shed some light on this theory. He has appeared on various podcasts and shows throughout the years. He hosts his own podcast, the Flat Earth Podcast, and the Triple Truth Podcast. I'd like to welcome our guest, David Weiss, or better known as Flat Earth Dave. Thank you for coming on to the show, Dave.
Josh, thanks for having me on with such a ridiculous topic, flat Earth. Come on, we've all known the Earth is a globe because somebody told us and we never checked, because we heard a story that a guy in the ancient Greece near Aristophanes did a test with sticks and shadows and figure out the size of the Earth. But for some reason, that story was never printed in a book until the mid-1900s when the Rockefellers took over our education system. Are you familiar with the Aristophanes story? With it, where he, on a certain day of the year, he could see the sun in the bottom of a well, which told him that the sun was directly over him. And
So
good.
I will say I have not heard about that.
Yeah, so that's one thing they teach in school. I don't know if they're teaching it anymore because we've completely destroyed it. But basically, the story is he was in Greece. He put a post up at noon, and there was no shadow. And then his buddy, 500 miles away, put a stick up at the same time, and there was a shadow. And Carl Sagan explains, on Cosmos. Remember when Cosmos came out a long time ago? I'm probably dating you. That because the only way that works is on a curved Earth with a distant sun with direct rays. So first, Aristophanes, right? And this is a story that they teach the kids, right? It only works on a curved Earth, but the truth is it works on a flat Earth, okay? And it works on a ball Earth, so it doesn't prove either. But the first thing is Aristophanes had to believe that the sun was infinitely far. They don't know how far, but 93 million miles is infinitely far. And the rays all came in parallel when nobody has ever seen parallel rays. No one's ever seen parallel rays. So why would he think that? Also, back in the time of Aristophanes believed that the sun went around the Earth. He may have believed that the Earth was a globe. That's the story. But an infinite sun going around the Earth, that doesn't make sense. How could a sun orbit the Earth at a far distance like that? It makes absolutely no sense. But his sticks and shadows experiment actually don't work. It don't prove anything, because on a flat Earth with a small local sun, you could have a close sun over your stick. So if Aristophanes was there with the sun directly above him and across the plane farther away, his buddy had a stick, there would be a shadow. You can measure the length of the shadow. You can do some perfectly good math and figure out the sphericity of that flat plane. An experiment you can do at home, just get 2 lighters or 2 bottles or something and put them a few feet apart and hold a light over one of them. Just hold a bulb over one of them. One of them will have a shadow, one of them won't. That doesn't prove anything. It proves nothing. So that's one of the number one globe proofs that there are, debunked, and we move forward.
Yeah.
All right. And another thing, and by the way, everything that you're going to say today and have already said, I said. when I first heard about this, because we've been programmed. 2,000 years ago, we've known for 2,000 years. Well, in February of 2020, I met this woman, Ruth, 102 years old, totally has her mind together. And I was interviewing her about the World's Fairs, another rabbit hole that you have to go down. And she was telling me how they lit up these fairs, and it was lights everywhere, and it was just amazing. And her memory was so good. I said, what did they teach you about the Earth? Never once mentioning flat Earth. When in elementary school. And she said, they taught me that the Earth was flat. In elementary school, this was in the 1920s, 1920s, 1930s. She was taught that the Earth was flat in public school here in America. And then recently we found other people that said in the 1950s and 60s, they were teaching both. They're like, well, it could be flat, it could be, they're teaching both. And then all of a sudden, flat Earth was removed, like it was Mandela'd out of existence. And everyone says the Earth is a globe. How do we know it's a globe? What proof do we have? We have no proof.
I would definitely agree with that. I know you mentioned that the Rockefellers, I know that they are notorious for getting involved in some nefarious reasonings behind it. So the first question that I have, because I know I haven't delved like deep down in this rabbit hole, just because when it first started coming out, obviously, like you just mentioned, I was under the conditioning that it was a globe. And then here recently, one of my friends who also delves down the rabbit hole as well was talking about it. And I've seen there's been a huge uptick in it, especially when I look at my Instagram, people talking about it. I know some people talk about a firmament, like the ocean above is what we're seeing above us is the ocean, or bottom of the ocean. I've seen people talk about how there's like multiple levels to the Earth. Could you sort of explain not even the truth, because obviously we probably don't even know what that is, but sort of what the flat Earth theory sort of strives to be? Is it that we truly are flat? Are we in a dome? Or sort of what is the theory behind that?
Well, flat is not a shape. Flat is a description of something that's horizontal and level. Okay. And that's flat. There's hills and valleys and mountains and trenches, but the Earth lays flat. The Earth is 70% water. I think it's more. And large bodies of water at rest lay flat. Now on a physical ball, if a boat moved away over the ball, they would disappear over a physical horizon, and zooming in and zooming out wouldn't ever bring that boat back because there's a physical horizon. But on a flat Earth, the horizon is optical. It's where the limit of your vision brings the sky and the ground together, and you can't see any further. Okay. But if you zoom in, you can increase that angular view, and you can see things that have disappeared simply due to angular size. So on a globe Earth, the size that they tell us it is, there should be a physical horizon at just for a 6 foot tall person standing at the edge of calm water. The horizon should drop away below forming a physical horizon at just 3 miles. There's 6 foot drop at 3 miles, according to globe math. Well, when I first heard this and I saw all these examples on videos of seeing things too far, I said, well, I got to do it myself. Went out, bought a super zoom, Nikon P900 super zoom camera, tripod, went down, sat at the edge of the water, zoomed in across Long Island Sound, 7 miles away, saw people sitting on the beach. Well, there should be dozens of feet of curvature. Okay, they should be hidden, and I could see them, and they're not refracted. They're there. I can see them. I can see kids playing with their shovels and buckets and stuff, and I'm just like, well, the Earth might be bigger. That was my first jump. Maybe it's just bigger, and they're lying to us on the size. Then we have distances that we can see things the Earth would need to be 1,000 times bigger. That's a problem in itself. If the Earth's 1,000 times bigger, maybe they're hiding some more land or something. So just getting to the basics. And when you look into flat Earth, if you Google flat Earth, you might as well just keep your ball, because you're not going to go anywhere. If you Google flat Earth, you end up with pictures of a disc floating in space, right? That's what you Google flat Earth. That's what you get, and the water falling off the edge. Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that. So what is the flat Earth? Well, the flat Earth is we live what I call in the Antarctic basin. What does that mean? Well, large bodies of water need a container. You know, a hot tub needs a container. Get rid of the hot tub, the water's gone. Get rid of the edge of a pond, the pond is gone. Get rid of the edge of a lake, which is a bigger pond, the water's going to flow until it finds its base level. Well, guess what the highest land on Earth is?
I would say Antarctica potentially. Even
Right.
the mountains in
It,
Asia is what I would think.
Antarctica has the highest mountains on Earth. They don't tell you because they're like, oh, that's because the top is just ice and that doesn't really count. It's also the highest plateau on Earth. Well, Antarctica, they tell us, is a continent at the bottom of a ball. But in reality, Antarctica is the land that surrounds our world. It's the container of our world lake. Okay. So all of our water is sitting there and it's contained with the highest land on Earth. We live in the Antarctic basin. And the funny thing about Antarctica is in the 1940s and 50s, we started exploring down there. Admiral Byrd went out there and he said he found more land past the pole. That's a problem on a globe, bigger than the United States, filled with resources that can fuel the whole world for centuries. And so, you know what they did? As soon as they heard that, you know, we're this is times of war and you know, just insanity. They came up with the Antarctic Treaty. And the Antarctic Treaty said no one's allowed to explore Antarctica, no country. And guess what? Every country in the world signed on to this. Every country in the world agreed, don't go explore these resources, even though we wouldn't be displacing any Indians, any people, anything. We wouldn't be killing any wildlife because there isn't anything except some penguins at the shoreline. We wouldn't be doing anything. And they said, nope. And it's still in place today. You can't even question the treaty until the year 2041. And all the countries in the world agree. When else has all the countries in the world agreed on something like this crazy insanity that's going on now without saying the words? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone agrees. Right. This shows you that there is no division of countries. It's all made up to divide and conquer us. Divide and conquer is their game plan. They divide us by countries. They divide us by religions, races, sexes, sports teams, political parties, everything. Divide, 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 divide. And now they're like, don't even go to work, stay home, right? Divide, divide, divide. They don't want us coming together. We'll get into that. So that's the makeup of our world. Now the question is, what's beyond the shoreline of Antarctica? Where's the edge? Well, I don't know if there is an edge. Maybe there's a dome that terminates. Maybe it's an endless extended plain. You know, maybe there's more land. I'm a big fan that there's more land beyond Antarctica. Where we live in the center of this pond, Antarctica is a ring around us. And then beyond that are more oceans and extra land, extra territory. If somebody lived on the extra territory, you might consider them an extraterrestrial. And if they came to visit us in the middle, in the inner, we might consider them an extraterrestrial from outer space, just a couple thousand miles away, rather than ridiculous light years. Light years are insanity. Okay?
Yeah, that is definitely very interesting. And I know my friend was mentioning that with Antarctica, like when people go up to it, it's just these big giant walls of ice that nobody sort of seems beyond that. And I see that you have Admiral Byrd there, and obviously
Admiral Byrd is being interviewed here, and there's a big for those of you listening, there's a big world map behind him with a clock on it. Why is there a clock on it? And it's because that's where we get clocks from the flat earth map. I'll get into that in a little bit. But when you say a big giant ice wall, that people think Game of Thrones. An ice wall is a wall that has something behind it, you know, another side to it. It's just a shoreline. When you get to Antarctica, there is a cliff 200 feet high, and in most places, and then there's the plateau. Okay. And that's the Antarctic plateau. It's not a wall. Game of Thrones, I believe the entire reason, well, the multi reasons that was made was one, to make you believe in barbaric history, which isn't true, and make you believe in the stupid walls when you're, oh, what do you believe? You're a flat earther. You believe in the ice wall, right? And, you know, the little guy said, I want to piss off the end of the world when he's standing on the ice wall. It was a big scene in one of the episodes. And that's not true. That's not the way it is. It's not the way it works. And you know, believing in our barbaric history. The majority of the sleeping people in this world think that we're at the pinnacle of civilization, that we're at the height of technology and intelligence, when the truth is we're literally in the middle of the movie Idiocracy. Okay. And there in the 1800s, there was an advanced civilization here worldwide, building things that we can't even fathom today. And guess what? That's not a theory. They're everywhere. When you go outside, when you go to any city, anywhere, these buildings are still there that we couldn't build today. And they come up with ridiculous stories on how, when they were built, how they were built. All nonsense. All of our history is a lie.
No, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The Tartaria Tartaria theory, I've looked into that a little bit. I think I had Ari Solon on a few weeks ago, or about a month ago now, talking about it as well. It's definitely interesting considering how much of our history has been covered up throughout the years. Sort of going back to Admiral Byrd. Obviously, I know for anybody that doesn't know who he is, he was a Air Force pilot commissioned to, I think it was multiple flights through the Arctic circles. And I think his last one that he even recorded was flying into Earth itself, or flying through a hole into Earth. And so it's sort of, go ahead.
Let me comment on that. That was written, that was, I believe, was released after his death, his unexpected death of a heart attack. That's interesting. The whole about him flying into the inner Earth, that never came from his mouth. I don't believe. And so I believe that is just a obfuscation story to make him sound a little crazy and make people believe in hollow Earth, a concave Earth, or globe Earth. Doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. There is no curvature. We're not moving. Every scientific test to prove the turning of the Earth or the motion of the Earth or curvature has failed and proven the opposite.
No doubt. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting with Admiral Byrd when you brought that up. So sort of like when we're looking at this, obviously history, everything is a lie. When we sort of look at NASA, which I think NASA is riddled with a lot of inconsistencies, even going back to sort of one of the founders with Werner Braun, which is very interesting considering the whole flat Earth theory, and him even mentioning on his tombstone the Bible verse. I can't remember what it is, but when you read it, it talks about a firmament or a dome over the world.
Right. It's Psalms 19:1. It says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." Why is a Russian Nazi rocket scientist who's running NASA with a bunch of other occultists, right? NASA was formed by Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons and Werner von Braun and Walt Disney, right? Why are all these guys running NASA? And it's basically an occult propaganda wing. No one's gone to space. But what was the point you were making that I interrupted?
It was more so going into sort of what is NASA's not necessarily true purpose, but what sort of is their hand in all of this?
Yeah, so NASA's hand is, hey, there's more land in Antarctica, and then the world leaders, maybe the people that we see that run the world, kind of just figured it out, and they're like, hey, you know what? We're going to lose control of the slaves if they find out what this place is, and they're like, okay, Antarctic Treaty. Well, that's going to cause some They're going to cause some attention. So what do? Hey, the moon. Let's go to the moon. Hey, we're going to the moon, right? All the attention goes to the moon, and that's something that we can never verify, right? So NASA and the moon missions were made just to distract people, to make them think they live on a ball, to have idol worship, and to believe in a whole bunch of fairy tale nonsense. And all of that was programmed, since before we can talk as kids. All of our toys, all of our shows. There's Disney. There's astronauts on Sesame Street and Walt Disney, and it's all about rockets and it just basically captures children's minds and captures adult minds. and it just keeps people not looking to where they are. We're at the center of creation. We're not spinning in the middle of an infinite, godless, or distant God universe, right? They don't want us seeing that, because once you see the creation, you can no longer deny the existence of a creator. And that's what they don't want.
No, yeah, I definitely would agree with some of that as well. So like when we're talking about, like, obviously, I know with the moon stuff, I sort of go back and forth with it, especially depending upon how I see it. I do believe that it was fake to an extent, and obviously anybody that sort of follows Stanley Kubrick, I know he sort of, I haven't delved too much into it, but I know from what some people have said that what is it, The Shining is sort of his
Oh, absolutely.
way of saying, hey, I faked it or I filmed it type of deal. So if we're talking about NASA and talking about the universe, or talking about the galaxy, the solar system, how do we sort of explain, like, the other planets, the moon? I do know, obviously, I do believe that the moon was artificial or put here to begin with, and I know that there are some theories that the sun may be artificial as well. But how does this sort of explain our solar system, or is this still just like a ruse that we've been conditioned to believe?
You've been rused, conditioned to believe a whole bunch of nonsense. When you look at what planets really are, and when you look through real optics, you see something completely different. NASA shows you all these beautiful painted planets, and when you look through them through your own optics, you see energetic orbs. You see crazy, not physical objects. And then we're going to add some science to this in a second to show you that the planets they tell you you're seeing, you can't see, right? But one of the famous pictures of Saturn, which we took right off of NASA's website, the famous picture of Saturn, right? It's basically a studio model. We took it into Photoshop, cranked it up, and we could clearly see how they made it, and they did a crappy job. I mean, I'm not even good at Photoshop, and I could do a way better job than they did. You can see the layers, you can see all sorts of stuff. So when you look at Jupiter, for example, they painted a big model of Jupiter, and they use it again and again and again for still images years apart, right? In 2014, there was the famous picture of Jupiter. And then in 2016, the NASA made an announcement, hey, we photographed the northern lights on Jupiter, which proves there's a magnetic core like Earth. Well, if you ever see the picture, it's absolutely ridiculous what they showed as the northern lights. But worse than that, if you look at the picture, every cloud is the same. Jupiter is a gaseous, cloudy planet, and for some reason, it doesn't change in the picture. But but if you look at earlier footage of the Voyager going past Jupiter, it shows just over a couple hours or a couple days, I forget, time lapse, the clouds are moving constantly. How are we seeing the exact same cloud formations over 2 years apart? That there alone shows you NASA's lying, faking planets, and you really don't need to see anything else to know that they're all completely lying, but there's plenty more to see. Okay. When you look at footage on the International Space Station, now, are you a believer that we have an International Space Station? And it's okay, because I used to believe it, so don't feel bad.
I would say so, to a certain extent.
Okay.
Now,
So-
like I
so
said, I'm
let-
getting to the point where, like, the firmament idea is sort of creeping in, and sort of teetering on whether or not we're actually even in what we would call space.
Right. So first of all, the International Space Station is probably the most technologically advanced construction project ever. It was never constructed on Earth. They just took the parts to space and they put them together, and they didn't film it. They didn't take a single picture or a single video of it being assembled. Okay. Strike 1, 2, and 3, if you ask me. Right. But if you catch NASA when they do their video feeds from the space station faking something, you can unwind it all the way to, oh, they faked Saturn II. This is all complete and total bullshit. There was one scene where Don Pennant, the dumbest guy ever who became an astronaut, he made a cup out of a piece of plastic that he folded together, and he was drinking coffee in it in zero G. But it was filmed in a studio, and the cup wasn't real. And while he's letting the cup float around with a little coffee in it, the coffee becomes out of sync with the cup. The CGI screwed up, and we caught him. Strike 1, 2, and 3 again. Right? There's another time Chris Hadfield, who loves his guitar, he's upside down. The other guy holding the microphone's right side up. They're in two different rooms in front of green screens. And the guy holding the mic, looking at the monitor to see where Chris is, misplaced where Chris was, and he stuck the microphone directly into his neck. Okay? Strike 1, 2, and 3 again. NASA's dead again, right? And then we go further. We can go, sometimes they're on zero-G planes. Sometimes they're using green screen. Sometimes the green screen has a screw up. Now, you ever notice they're always wearing these heavy belts, these heavy utility pants, kind of like they're hanging from harnesses, okay? Why are their shirts tucked in? Why are their shirts buttoned up? Why are they always holding themselves? And sometimes they move quickly and the camera screws up and the green screen becomes revealed. So here's, I'm showing a scene where the green screen gets revealed behind an astronaut. Strike 1, 2, and 3 again, okay? And then there's other times where, two guys are talking and they're always flipping their microphone around and they're always flipping something around. Well, the things that they're flipping around aren't real. But in the distance, way down the hallway, they have a guy go floating by, someone doing some work on the space station, right? And I was like, what the hell's going on with that guy? So I zoomed in. And when I zoomed in, something was wrong with their layering, and the harness and wire that he was hanging from wasn't screened out. And you can see it clearly, right? And then the NASA fanboys come back with, oh, that's because it's for safety. They wear a harness and hang from wires in zero gravity for safety, right? Then it gets worse. In the script, the guy in the blue shirt was supposed to hand the other guy the hat that he's flipping around that isn't real, but he moves his right hand. The guy thinks he's passing him his hat, and he takes it and he puts it away, but he didn't grab anything. He's putting nothing away because he's playing with augmented reality objects, right? And they do this with kids too. They do all different techniques. Sometimes when they have a ball, the ball is actually filled with helium. It's real, but the stuffed animal is not real. And they're moving stuffed animals around and they're talking to kids. They're fooling children, right? And it's called augmented reality. You've seen it on green screens where they just they're manipulating things. They're either looking at something through contact lenses that have it, or perhaps they're looking at something on a screen behind the camera, right? They could fake people now. You don't know that people aren't real. Like Morgan Freeman was done where it wasn't him. He wasn't even there. Wasn't his voice. Nothing. But it looked and sounded just like him. They could do anything now, and people just gobble it up. And the stuff that they've done years ago, it doesn't hold up. Remember the movie Jaws? If you watched it today, would you think it's real? Jaws holds up better than any of the Apollo moon footage. Okay, it holds up way better. And the whole thing, Kubrick, did we fake it because we were in a space race with Russia and we couldn't show them the real technology we use? I used to believe that. That was like that made sense to me. But in reality, the moon isn't a place we can go. The moon is here within the Earth system. Okay? The moon is here. Well, what do I mean by that? So there is no universe. There is no universe. There's just the world that we live in, which I call the Earth system. And we can apply laws of physics to what they're saying. All right. So when we see the moon in the sky, a full moon, and there's some clouds in the sky, you'll see that the moon, and most of you probably don't remember this, but next time there's a well-lit moon in the sky and you've got some scattered clouds, go out and look, and you'll see that the moon only lights up the clouds that are right next to the moon. That's weird because the moon is 238,000 miles away. It should light up all the clouds equally. It's almost like it's a local light, right? Get a whole bunch of cotton balls, dump them all over your floor, get a flashlight, hold it high up in the sky, or get just a regular light, hold it up, and try to light up just a few of them. Where do you have to bring that light? You have to bring that light all the way down until it's just inches above those cotton balls to light up just a few. And so people are like, well, wait a minute, the moon can't just be above the clouds. Well, that's because the moon that we see, the sun that we see, the stars that we see aren't really there. They're more of a projection into our, what I call our personal atmospheric dome. What do I mean by that? Okay. So the perfect, so what I mean by that is the sources for those lights that we see, I believe, are farther away. They might be within the dome or above the dome or whatever. And they're being projected into our dome of vision. What do I mean by dome of vision? When you're looking across, just across the ocean, whatever, even on a clear day, the air becomes thicker and thicker and thicker to the point where you can't see any farther. Okay. If you look at some mountains, like mountains after mountains after mountains, the mountains will get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter until you can't see the mountains anymore. They're disappearing because of perspective and because of the atmospheric. So let's say the distance I can see is 100 miles, just for a number. Okay. If I could see 100 miles that way, that means I could see 100 miles all the way around me, assuming the weather's equal. But when I look up, you think I would see the same distance, farther, or less?
I would expect to see the same distance.
I would think farther because the air column is the thickest at the ground. And as you go up, it gets thinner and thinner and clearer and clearer. So maybe you would see higher. That's reasonable. So again, and then if I'm looking at 45 degrees, I'd probably see somewhere in between that. All right. And so if you plotted all of those points, you're creating a dome of vision. A dome of vision. So how does that work? Okay. So I did an experiment. I hung up a blue sheet in my room, and then I put a flashlight 10 feet on the other side of the sheet, and I'm looking at it, and it really looked just like a sun. And I'm seeing it on the sheet. So I had my girlfriend off to my left, and I said, where do you see the sun? And she pointed to the left of where I saw it. I moved the camera over. She's pointing at it. But at the same time, I see it over there in different spots. So we're looking at the same thing in two different spots. That's our personal atmospheric dome. And that's why you can't triangulate where the sun is. They don't know how far the sun is. They used to think it was 3 million miles away. Now they say it's 93 million miles away. And then an eclipse a couple of years ago, a whole bunch of amateur astronomers were like, they started writing stuff online. They're like, wait a minute, this shadow, the thing, they did the calculations. They're like, the sun is much farther than they're telling us, right? All of this stuff's online. It all disappeared. Because if you change the distance to the sun, you have to change the size of every planet, the orbit of every planet, the size of every moon. Everything changes. And they literally squashed it, and you can't find the information anymore.
No, yeah, that is very interesting. I know that's one of the things, especially when you sort of look at it in relation to the moon. Apparently, obviously, they're both the same size. They align perfectly during eclipses. Like going further onto the sun aspect, would you consider that sort of to be within our system, like the moon, or is it artificial, or is it outside of our atmosphere? How do you sort of explain the existence of the sun?
So the existence of the sun, I remember if you take a magnifying glass and when you're a kid and you burn ants.
Yeah.
Right. You remember you burnt ants. I know you did it. Okay. and if you look at that, I want you to get a magnifying glass next time it's sunny. Go out and do it again. Don't burn the ant cell. And it literally looks like a mini sun. Look at it. Take a picture of it. Zoom in on it. Right. But if you lifted that up 6 inches or 6 feet or whatever, it's gone. But it's really not. That point of energy, that light is just in the same relationship to it's just in the air. You just can't see it because there's nothing for it to project on. Well, when we're looking through the distance, that becomes our sky screen, like my sheet. And I believe that the sun is a reflection, for lack of a better word. And I actually had an experience long before I ever thought the earth was flat or ever knew the earth wasn't a globe. I was in Las Vegas. I was sitting at a conference, and I was at the pool 3:30 in the afternoon, and the sun was 45 degrees in the air off to my right, and it was blazing the right side of my face. So I'm sitting there eating some food, and I'm just like, you know what? I should go to the other side of the pool because I'm just going to be toast. I'm going to be burnt on one side of my face, so like a nice even tan. And but at the same time, the hotel off to my left had big mirrored sections on it, and the sun lined up with one of those mirrors, and boom, I'm looking at the sun. Hey, they both look the same, and I could feel the heat radiating off of the reflection. So I closed my eyes and I said, if I didn't know which one was the real sun, could I tell? And I couldn't. And I never gave it another thought after that. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And so then I'm like, when studying flat Earth and the real cosmology of our world, I was like, wait a minute, the sun's reflection, how's it so hot? And then that came into my memory. I'm like, wow, it was the same. I couldn't tell the difference. So maybe that reflection looked like that reflection. Maybe it was, who knows? Again, you don't need to look up at the optics in the sky to figure out the shape of the Earth, right? Yeah. And when a NASA person tells you, oh, we use trigonometry to figure out the size of the sun, well, guess what? The moon is the same size, so that means it's the same distance using your stupid trigonometry, right? And then the whole thing with eclipses and shadows, none of that works on a globe Earth. They make up an umbra and penumbra and nonsense, right? You can't create a smaller shadow of a moon. The moon has a 70-mile shadow the last time the eclipse crossed the United States. 70 miles. How do you do that? How does that happen? How do you even cast a shadow that far? Like, you can't cast a shadow that far. Get a basketball and a light and walk away from the wall and see how long, or just use the sun. The sun's low in the sky. Hold the basketball against the wall so you see the shadow, and then carry it away. Watch how fast that shadow just dissipates. It doesn't get smaller. It's ridiculous. All right. And the other thing is, there's a thing called the inverse square law of light. This is where globe believers, because globe believers, I was one, don't think. We're taught to memorize and regurgitate. It's called the inverse square law of light. Never learned about that in school. What does it mean? It's very simple. Every time you double the distance to a light, it's 1/4 of the brightness, or every time you half the distance to a light, it's 4 times brighter. This is a scientific law, right? So when I look up at the moon on a full moon night, I can read a book by it. It's casting my shadow on the ground. It's bright. Let's just pretend it's only 1 lumen. If I went halfway to the moon, it would be 4 lumens. Halfway again, 16. Halfway again, 64. By the time I got to 100 miles from the moon, the number of lumens is far greater than the brightness that we see the sun from Earth, right? It's like millions of lumens. It's absolutely insane. It's like so bright that it literally would vaporize you, if that's even a thing. Okay. Yeah. But the astronauts go to the moon. It's a dusty, dirty ball. And, when they're there, they're filming and driving doom buggies and nonsense. But that dusty, dirty ball is reflecting light back to Earth that's getting brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter along the way so it can cast a shadow. Bullshit.
That is very interesting with that.
Yeah.
With the lumens. To sort of switch gears a little bit when we're sort of talking about, and I know this is something that I just came across recently and started thinking about, is sort of thinking with the Earth spinning the way that it is. I think it's the Coriolis Effect. I think that's what it's called. I can't remember exactly.
Coriolis. Fictional force. Go ahead.
And it sort of made me start to wonder what you just pulled up there, like with people firing guns, planes, and it does put things into wonder how, just looking at a plane, if we're spinning as fast as we are, and obviously a plane is going, even though it's one of the fastest things on Earth, it wouldn't be able to keep up with the spin of the Earth.
So the story is that gravity is holding on to us and we're spinning with the Earth. Okay, cool story, right? But somehow wind can blow left and right. Here's the thing. On a ball, 24,900 miles around, if you're on the equator, you spin around once per day, and it's about 24,000+ miles. So you're going about 1,000 miles an hour, just over 1,000 miles an hour. If you're all the way up near Alaska, near the top of the ball, you'll go around once a day, right? But you're all making a much smaller circle around the North Pole. So you're only going like 300 miles an hour. Okay. What if you were in a plane on Alaska? And so before you start moving, you're sitting on the runway, you're moving 300 miles an hour to the east because the Earth is spinning to the east. Fine. Yeah. I'll give it to you. And then you take off and you speed up to 500 miles an hour. Doesn't make any sense, but let's add that 500 miles an hour to the 300 miles an hour. So now you're going 800 miles an hour and you fly to Ecuador. And Ecuador has a north-south facing runway that's moving sideways at 1,000 miles an hour. How do you make up that speed to land on that sideways moving, runway. Airplane. What do they fly over? Earth globe or Earth plane? Planes fly over the plane. Okay. So they tell us, snipers have to adjust for Coriolis. Okay, I'm a sniper. I got someone in my line 2 miles away, and I was like, okay, now I got to move my gun all the way off to the left and hook that bullet around. And depending on which direction you are, where you are on the earth, the calculations, like the book of calculations, would be like 10 feet thick, right? Like there's no possible way. Snipers have to account for bullets, they say, but every sniper we've talked to said they never account for Coriolis ever, right? There's a couple of videos out there, propaganda videos. Balloons, hot air balloons go up. They don't account for Coriolis. Felix Baumgartner, the Red Bull jump. Are you familiar with the Red Bull jump?
I am not.
So this is it was called the Edge of Space jump. And Felix went up and he jumped out. He parachuted from 127,000 feet. And when he was up there, you saw this big curve of the earth. But if you actually analyze the picture, all of the land that's showing about a quarter of the earth is all New Mexico. New Mexico got mighty big, right? Right? Yeah, all of the United States isn't that big. It's like, and so it's showing that it's a fisheye lens. So, but the story that goes with Coriolis is when he jumped, he was up there for 3.5 hours. The earth is spinning to the east 1,000 miles an hour, 800 miles an hour, whatever. He should have landed a couple thousand miles out in the ocean, out in the west. But he landed east of where he took off. So he went up, sped up, because you have to speed up to keep up with the earth, and then sped up further and outran the spin of the earth and landed east of where it's going, because the earth is spinning to the east, remember?
Yeah.
All nonsense. All absolute and total nonsense. And another thing with the Red Bull jump, when he climbed in, the camera looking out had a horizon, level with the camera. And when at 127,000 feet, when they opened the door, the horizon was at the exact same level. How's that happen? On a ball, that horizon should be dropping away the higher you get, but it stayed at the same level. Crazy, right?
That is definitely crazy.
No, it's crazy. No, it's crazy. I'm going to tell you what's crazy. Believing that we live on a heliocentric, spinning, crazy spiral, impossible space ball in an impossible space vacuum. How can no experiment ever has allowed you to have high pressure next to a lower pressure or a vacuum, worse, without a physical barrier, right? How come the Earth air doesn't get sucked into space? And the global answer is gravity. Gravity's holding the air down. But I can, with the weak low pressure of my mouth and lungs, can suck a straw, water, and air up and away from Earth at any altitude, right? Even here at sea level, where the gravity is supposedly the strongest, no problem drinking through a straw. Well, I'm defying gravity, right? Absolute insanity. In their model, this should happen. If you had a shoebox, open shoebox in a room, and then you, from the bottom of the room, sucked all of the air out of the room, all of the air should remain in the shoebox because gravity is going to hold it in there.
Yeah.
Okay? I think that doesn't happen.
No.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, and I'm going to throw this out there because it happened to me, and I just wanted to know it happened to you. Don't beat yourself up, because you're going to when you find out how stupid your entire world belief has been. I did it. We all did it. It's like once you see it, once you look in even deeper than I'm going, you'll be like, how did I ever fall for this? And then you'll tell your friends, and your friends will go, you're an idiot. You think the earth, and they're going to come up with all the same propaganda. You don't tell the earth is spinning, just like on an airplane, you could drink a glass of water and walk to the bathroom, but that was in your head. That was programmed in your head. If you want to compare being on an airplane to just the spin of the earth, forget the 66,000 miles an hour orbit or the 500,000 miles an hour chasing the sun. You'd have to take that airplane, you'd have to remove the entire outer shell, you'd have to double the speed, and you'd have to nosedive over a mile every minute just to mimic what the earth is doing. Okay? I don't think your glass of water or your walk to the bathroom is going to do so well on that under those conditions.
I don't think so either in that. Um, so and that's very fascinating. And like I said, that was something that I just started thinking about here recently with the plane, and just sort of obviously you're up off the ground and you're
Right.
moving slower than what the planet is moving at. It like you would think that you would end up somewhere else at that point. You would be far off your destination.
Let me ask you a question. We're corkscrewing through space, traveling 4.5 billion miles a year, never to return where we were before. But somehow Haley's Comet can leave our solar system for 76 years and come back and find us. How is that possible? How is that possible?
It shouldn't, unless it is
unless it's mimicking all of
along with us. Yeah.
So in our solar system, you got planets moving and curling around and alignments and everything, but somehow the giant gas ball, right? The giant gas ball that we call our sun, a burning ball of gas in a space vacuum. Do you have a problem with that? You ever put a jar over a candle and see what happens?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you got a burning ball of gas. That gas has so much gravity due to mass that it's holding onto the Earth and holding onto Pluto and all the other planets in between, but it's ignoring all of the moons. Like, why, when our moon comes around towards the sun, doesn't the sun rip it away from us, or at least speed it up a little bit? And when it goes back around away from the sun, why doesn't the sun just slow it down a little bit? It ignores. The sun's gravity doesn't affect moons. Only planet gravity affects moons, right? I'm just making up stories because that's what Globers do. Okay. And so there's a thing called the three-body problem. You could take the world's largest computer, the best computer ever, and you make a simulation in it. So you got a sun, it's got this regard, you got a planet, put them in orbit, and that computer can figure out what's going to happen for the next million years, right? It's going to be here. This is where it's going to be. Works perfectly to the perfect. Then you add a third body, either a moon going around the planet or another planet going around the sun, and that computer can only figure out what it's going to do for the next minute or just very short period of time, and then it goes into chaos mode, right? It can't figure out what's going to happen later. Add a fourth body, forget it, right? There's 100 billion stars with multiple planets around them, and those planets have moons, and somehow we can figure out where everything's going to be. All complete and total horseshit, right?
Yeah. It's definitely interesting, and when you talk about the moon, when it's moving, it should theoretically be pulled away from us by the sun. And obviously, like you said, we are told that the planets have such a magnetic pull that it keeps all the moons intact, and it definitely begs the question of why the sun doesn't impact things like we've been told.
So let me make one more point. So with all of those motions and all of the stars and everything, go out tonight, and everyone listening, go out tonight at whatever time and sit down in a certain spot and make a little chart and say, okay, I see that pattern, I see those stars, and just make a little star chart. And then put an alarm in your calendar for next year, same night, same time, and pull that out on the same night and go look, and every star will be in the exact same position. The exact same position, dude. Nothing changes. The stars are fixed in the firmament and they're turning. And here's the thing. Before I was a flat earther, I was going from California to Australia. I was going down for the Olympics, actually. And our flight left at like midnight or something. And I was really excited to be in the middle of the ocean with no other lights, high in the sky, and be able to see the incredible Milky Way galaxy. I was like so into it. Yeah, I was a big astronomy guy, right? And I looked out the friggin' window. There was like 2 stars. 2. And they were probably airplanes. Okay. All the stars were gone. What's up with that? Right? We sent a balloon up in Arizona with high-def cameras looking up, and it was perfectly clear night. Before the balloon took off, we could see the Milky Way. We could see everything. It was beautiful. And it went up and up and up. You'd think it'd get clearer and clearer and clearer. By the time it hit 50,000, 60,000 feet, all the stars were gone. Okay. You want me to explain that? I wish I could. I can't explain it, but it doesn't work in a heliocentric model. I have theories on, like that the stars that we see are in our, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think they're physical, and we see them based on our position. It's very strange stuff, but it's not heliocentric. That's for sure.
No, yeah, that definitely, it reminds me, I'm a big anime fan, and it's an anime that came out right around 2008, if memory serves me correct. where what we're talking about sort of made me start thinking of that. Where it's a show called Darker Than Black. Ran for a couple of ran for 2 seasons, but the first one is really where it goes really big into the mythology with it. But they talk about basically it's in Tokyo. They basically, due to this really big weird experiment that sort of ripped a bunch of stuff apart, for a lack of better terms, that they ended up putting this dome over Tokyo, and in the sky when it would turn night, basically like the dome simulated the day, simulated night, and then during the night they basically I want to say fake the stars is the best way to put it, where basically the government essentially just put stars up in the night sky to make people believe. Obviously people knew that they were fake because they were aware of the incident that happened, but when we were sitting there talking about that, that sort of made me think back upon that show and sort of thinking that maybe what we're seeing in the night sky, maybe they're just sort of like holograms or something else.
Again, it's fun to speculate on this stuff. There's a video that I put on the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It was one of the featured videos of a Freemason who was whistleblowing, if you will. And you just see his arms, and he's got a whiteboard, and he's drawing, and he shows the makeup of the Earth, and basically shows that the center of the Earth is the black sun, the Earth plane, and it's projecting the sun and the moon into the sky. And it's crazy. It's really amazing, amazing video. I should actually pull that into my presentation for next time. But here's something. If you look at Greek mythology, you know Atlas, the Greek god Atlas, and what was he holding up?
He was holding up supposedly Earth or a globe.
Yeah, that's been changed, right? That's what they say he was holding up. But in reality, if he was holding up Earth, what's he standing on? If Earth is floating in space, right? That makes no sense. But if you go back and you look into some other things, where is it? Is you see that I'm not as fast here as I thought I was. That Atlas is holding up the firmament. I lost all my Atlas guys. All right, well, I'm talking to people that are listening anyway. So, wow, it's gone. But he's holding up the firmament. He's holding up the sky. And you look at in Egyptian hieroglyphics and stuff, they show their gods holding up the dome. They're holding up the dome.
Yeah. So when we're talking about like mythology and everything, obviously, I mean, you look at like the Mayans who were very, very in tune with like cosmology and the universe, or at least the star systems. So when we're thinking of ancient civilizations, did they ever mention like the Earth being flat? Obviously, we were told before Christopher Columbus that everything was flat, but is there any sort of direct reference to these civilizations having that, or were if we follow down the route of Tartaria with the last 1,000 years sort of being a lie, was that all just sort of put into believe that the Earth was a globe?
Yeah, every previous culture was a flat Earth culture all the way up into the mid 1900s. It wasn't until NASA came around that the globe came around. But then they had to backstory it. Oh, we have we have Aristophanes and all these other guys that supposedly proved the globe years ago. Their stories are ridiculous. Okay. They made a telescope, out of ground glass or whatever, and they could see crap that we can't see with today's optics. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. It's all nonsense. Right. NASA is a religion. The other ones they're all talking about a flat cosmology where we're at the center of creation. Right. We're at the basement of the universe and everything we see in the sky is above us. If you look now, let's just, people are like, well, the stars, this and that. The closest star, follow this. Everybody listening, follow this. This is simple math. Simple math. And people short circuit because we weren't taught to think this way. They tell us that the sun is a big yoga ball and the earth is a BB next to it, or a marble, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if the sun was just a mile over your head, just for demonstration purposes, it would fill the entire sky, right? It would just fill your entire sky. Then we move it 93 million miles away and it reduces to the size of a coin held at arm's length, right?
Yeah.
So that's a huge reduction. If I doubled the distance again, how much smaller does it get? A lot, right? Supposedly 3 times it's scientifically too small for your eye to resolve. Okay. But let's go safe, 24 times as far. Well, they tell us the sun is 8 light minutes away. 8 light minutes times 24 is 3 light hours. So at 3 light hours, our sun is scientifically provable way, 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 way too small to see. Okay. We're agreement, not a theory.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about Polaris. Polaris, everybody can see Polaris. It's our North Star. It's right off the end of the Big Dipper. It's not the brightest star in the sky, but you can see it with your naked eye anywhere in the inner north. Okay? They tell us Polaris is 46 to 48 times bigger than our sun. Let's go 48 times. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Well, to make it an equivalent distance that we couldn't see it, 48 times 3 light hours is 6 light days. At 6 light days away, Polaris is scientifically provably too small for your eye to resolve. There's another problem. The inverse square law would make it so dim. It would have to be so bright that it's brighter than brightness could be for us to even be able to see it. But let's leave that off the table. Let's pretend that light just expands and doesn't dim as it expands. You know, when you're blowing up a balloon, it's a nice thick balloon and it gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner until it pops. Same thing with light. It gets thinner and thinner and thinner. But let's ignore that. At 6 light days away, Polaris is scientifically provably impossible to see. And they tell us Polaris is 433 light years away. Let that sink in. Okay? And let's talk about how far that is. The closest star is only 4 light years away, 4.5. 25 trillion miles. So if you were traveling at 1 mile per second for 1 trillion seconds, how many miles have you gone?
That is a lot of miles.
Well, no, 1 mile per second. So hold on, listen, it's way, everyone short circuits on this. It's too easy. If you're traveling 1 mile per second for 10 seconds, how many miles have you gone?
10 miles.
If you're going for 1 trillion seconds, how many miles have you gone?
1 trillion.
Right. But when we go to these large numbers, our brain stops thinking, or our brain stops thinking. So if you're traveling faster than anyone's ever gone, which is 1 mile per second, for 1 trillion seconds, you're 1/25th of the way to the closest star. We're not even talking about Polaris. We're talking about the closest star. Okay. You're 1/25th of the way there. So you only have to do that 24 more times. You with me?
Yeah.
Everyone, stick with me. Here comes the punchline. How long in years is 1 trillion seconds? Take a guess. Take a guess. Just take a guess. Take a wild stab.
I would probably put it north of 1,000, maybe north of 10,000 years.
31,000 years. That's a really good guess. You're closer than anyone ever gets. 31,000 years. And you're 1/25th of the way to the closest star. Polaris is magnitudes and magnitudes farther. Bullshit. You can't see stars, what they tell us. And we proved it. Balloons and airplanes flying up, the stars disappear. They're lying to us about everything. And when you really look at what stars are, you know, they're nothing like what they tell us. They're nothing like, you know, when you zoom in on a star, it's a pulsing orb of energy here within the Earth system. Okay. And when you see these things, you can't unsee them, right? Every star is different. It has its own personality. What are stars? We can speculate all day. I think that the Earth is alive and all the lights that we see in the sky are all sentient. It's all part of a system and we're all part of that system. The elite, evil, soulless bastards want us to believe that we're separate, that we're just here in a meat suit, that we die and we turn into dirt, that we're a random accident. They want us to believe in the Matrix. The Matrix is the heliocentric system because it's a prison for your mind. What if there's more land? What if we're at the center of creation, which we are, and our thoughts create our reality? Everyone look at your life. Your thoughts created your reality. Okay, what you think comes into your reality, good or bad, right? And don't give me the, oh, well, I want $1 million. You're basically sending out, I don't have $1 million. I'll never have $1 million, and you're going to prove me right because I'm going to prove this wrong, right? That's how it works. Your thoughts, your pure thoughts, create your reality, and they don't want you to know that. So they steer your mind north, east, west, south. That's how they steer your mind. What does that stand for? North, east, west, south. News.
Or cardinal directions is the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, well, the news, north, east, west, south. They're steering your mind with nonsense, absolute and total nonsense. So before we just have a few more minutes. You have any other questions? Because I'm going to tell people, here's the thing. If you try to Google flat Earth, you're going to get fed nonsense. If you say top 10 reasons we live on a flat Earth, or circumnavigation on a flat Earth, or stars on a flat Earth, or anything, you're going to get the same results, which you shouldn't. If you say, show me the great video, A Stranger's Guide to Flat Earth, 21 Questions, you're going to get the same propaganda videos when you just typed in a specific name to a video that's gotten millions and millions of views, and that video didn't come up. Why? Why are they hiding it? They changed the algorithm in 2016 or 17 where you can't find any good information. So, question before I tell people where they can get the information?
So I think you hit on it right at the end. I was going to ask you sort of why the hiding of it is the big thing.
They're hiding more land. They're hiding the fact that nobody has control over you other than in your imagination. We live in this world where natural law, the law of the land, versus maritime law, the law of the evil governments, right? They've put us into this maritime system. And once you understand that you don't have to be in that system, they tricked you into that system. When you sign your 1040, you're agreeing that you owe those things that you didn't agree before, that you never agreed to, that you don't. Okay? It's a whole thing. And when you get into it and you see it, you free yourself. Neo at the end of the movie, The Matrix, is unplugged from the heliocentric system. He can now operate as a true human being. And that's what they don't want. They don't want us to know who we are, where we are, what we are. So getting into where you can get that, where you can figure this all out, I created an app. Oh, here it is. He's selling an app. It's $3. It doesn't hurt anybody. It's $3. Okay. And I say, don't get the app. Just go to the App Store and read the reviews. It's called the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It has to be by Blue Water Bay because Google already has a Flat Earth Society one in there by the Glenn Media Group or something, which is a ripoff. It's not my app. It's horrible. Don't send me an email telling me my app sucks because my app is the highest rated app in both stores. Okay. Every day on the app, there's a new featured video. And I tell people, here's the challenge. If you think I'm crazy, watch the featured video every day for 2 weeks. At the end of that 2 weeks, if you think the Earth is a globe, you can send me one proof and I'll give you 3 Bitcoins. But before you do, you have to hit the question mark button, which is the frequently asked questions page. And you can say, what about eclipses? And then, you look there and you see, eclipses kind of prove the Earth is flat. What about gravity? You can see that gravity is complete nonsense and what the real explanation for what the thing we call gravity is. What about ships over the horizon? You hit that button and up comes a playlist of videos that Google won't serve you. Interesting. And then you watch these and don't believe any of them. Go and verify this stuff yourself. You want to learn about NASA? Hit the NASA button. You want to learn about mud floods? Hit the mud floods button. You want to learn about more of my interviews? I got my interviews button in there. All sorts of stuff. Check it out. And here's what happens. Many people say, you know what? I'm going for those Bitcoins. And then 2 weeks later, they're flat earthers. Okay. So listen, if you can't deal with being a flat earther, do not get this app because you will become, and you know what? Let's say a globe denier. Because guess what? I don't know what this earth is. Is it a dielectric plane? Are there other ones? Is there more land? Is it infinite? We don't know, but we know it's not a ball. That's scientifically provable. We know that the stories that they tell us are absolute insanity. And the app also has tons of other stuff in it. The app itself will show you how the seasons work, how the sun and the sun laps the moon, how the stars lap the sun, and that's how the sun is in each zodiac, right? The stars go around 365 times before they lap the sun once. So the sun will drift backwards through all of the zodiacs, right? And then the sun itself will lap the moon every 28 days. So when it laps the moon, you get a new moon, and then the moon keeps track of the weeks and the months. The sun keeps track of the hours and the days, and the stars keep track of the years. That's impossible in a heliocentric system. So it's called the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. And one other thing on the app, there is a subscription if you want to be able to send messages on the Friend Finder. And the Friend Finder shows you where all the other app users are, and you can contact them, and you can have meetups, and they're everywhere. We're everywhere, and are growing fast. The UK is filled with flat earthers. The United States is dominating with flat earthers. Australia, everywhere. And you can find like-minded people no matter where you are and meet up with them. People are using it as a job app, as a dating app, as a friendship app, as a meetup app. It's absolutely insane. You can tap on any of the dots. You can send them a message. You can send a group message. Like right now, I have my radius set for 50 kilometers. I got 320 people within 50 kilometers. And I'm going to send a message out next week saying, hey, April 2nd, New York City, we're having a meetup at the XYZ place. And we're having a meetup. And there's going to be hundreds of people that show up there. It's going to be a blast. So we use their technology against them to bring us together because they want us separated and lost, spinning out of control, and powerless. They want us to believe that they have control over us when in fact they don't.
This is definitely a lot of information. And definitely it has me questioning whether or not we truly are on that globe. And like I said earlier, I honestly don't know. But
Josh,
I'm open to everything.
Josh, get the app. You don't need to subscribe until the point where you're like, oh, you know what? I do want to contact other people because I need someone to talk to. All my friends are idiots. Okay. And your friend that turned you on to Flat Earth, they have the app already. They probably have the app already. I'm curious if they do. Let me know.
No problem.
And so get the app, just watch that daily video. And then right next to the daily video, there's a little archive button. If you're like, I don't want to wait 2 weeks, you can hit and watch all the videos from all the previous days, months, and years. And they're all fantastic hand-selected videos by me. And they're amazing. People say just for that feature alone, the app is worth it, but it does everything else. It's got images in there. It shows you the moon lander. It shows you everything. It shows you, we didn't get into it because it's more of a visual thing. Southern flight routes prove the Earth is flat. Absolutely 100%. It's unbelievable. And once you see that, I just hit the Southern flight routes button and you'll see. And just, you'll find that you no longer need Netflix. You no longer need cable television. This is all you need because the amount of information in here is mind-blowing. And if you hit the Mud Floods button or the Flat Earth Movies button, the full feature-length movies, or God forbid you hit the Lost History of Flat Earth, that one's going to suck you in and keep you forever.
Well, we'll sort of leave things there. Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on today, Dave. Definitely a lot of information. I will go in and I will check out that app. Because like I said, for me, this stuff like this, I find very interesting, very fascinating. I'm very open just to about everything that's out there. I don't try to shun away from stuff like most people do.
I did. I went in with the opposite attitude. You have an open mind. And here's what I say. Don't have such an open mind that your brain falls out. Have an open mind. Say, okay, that's interesting. Now let me verify it. Where do I live? Did I tell you?
You did not.
Oh, so normally I tell people I live in Connecticut. Okay, I live in Connecticut. Where do I live?
And on the Earth. That's the only thing that I can really
I live. Where do I live on the Earth? Say it. Connecticut.
In Connecticut.
Do you know it or do you believe it?
I believe it.
Okay, there you go. Belief is easy. Belief is the enemy of knowing because you can go take a nap now. But if you want to verify it, you have to like search me out. Oh, you found me on Facebook. You found some other people. You found my job history. You're like, yeah, all right, he lives in Connecticut, right? I do. Okay. And it takes time and effort. Belief is easy. Belief is for lazy people, right? Knowing takes time, effort, and critical thought. And that's not what we were taught. We were taught to memorize and regurgitate. That's what we were taught. So there we go.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Dave.
You can find all my links, everything. If you forget the name of the app, it's very long and convoluted. FlatEarthDave.com. Everything is there.
That was going to be the other thing. I forgot to mention that because you went right into everything at the end.
FlatEarthDave.com. You can find my interviews channel, my YouTube channel, which is DITRH, deep inside the rabbit hole. I have all short videos, less than 5 minutes, most of them. Okay. And so that's good for the beginners because it's like, it's like a crack dealer. Here, just have a little bit, right? You watch a couple of those videos, you're going to be looking for the longer videos, and then you're going to get the app, and then you're going to call me up and say, you've ruined my life. My parents think I'm crazy. They want to institutionalize me, but they'll come around eventually.
No doubt. Well, I definitely thank you for coming on, Dave. Definitely, I would love to have you on again and dive further into this rabbit hole with more information.
Just watch the videos on the app for a little bit and write down some questions, but your questions are mostly answered in the FAQ section. So check it out and report back, and we'll talk again.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, man.